Okay, hello teachers who are participating in this workshop. Wherever you are around the world, we welcome you. And I am very excited today to have a very new friend with us and sharing some of her experience and expertise in the field of education. If I haven't gotten a chance to meet you, I am Anna Laughlin, and I am part of the Teacher to Teacher project, and I'm one of the teacher trainers. I have been training teachers for over 15 years, all over the place, all over the world. And when I find a like-minded educator anywhere around the world, I link arms with them and become friends with them because I know how important they are to the work that I do and the work that their colleagues do around the world. So I would like to introduce you to Tasha Johnson. Tasha comes to us all the way from Sacramento, California, right, Tasha?
That's right.
And before we get started in our workshop, I would like for Tasha to tell us just a few things about her experience in education.
Sure.
And, go for it.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Anna, thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation with you. I'm so excited. I too have been in education for a couple of days now, a little bit over 20 years. And I've seen it all. So I was a 7th and 8th grade English teacher in the classroom. I was a director of a social justice program that went into schools all over the school district to talk about issues that affected students. And they reflected their opinions and ways they can make change through art. So I've met a lot of teachers throughout the country. I've met a lot of students, and more importantly, I've gotten a lot of different practices that people do throughout the United States. And I'd love to pass on some of the best practices that I've seen that people can use and even build on it for their own classrooms and their own communities. So, you know, each one teach one, I'm all about it. So thank you for having me here.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here, and I know you come with a wealth of experience. So let's just get into it. You ready?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is the whole idea of building classroom community. And that means different things to different people. And I recently heard a story that just, I mean, I got emotional when I heard the story because I could picture what was happening. And the story was about a teacher. She was an older teacher and apparently had been doing this for years and years and years, probably decades. But every Friday in every class she ever taught, she would say, okay, I want you to write on a note card, every student, I want you to write the name of one person you played with this week,
Okay.
and one person you'd like to play with next week. And the students would write the names down, and then as they would leave the classroom, they would hand the note cards to her. And she would go home over the weekend and she would look at every single note card and write down the names of all the students who were mentioned by their classmates. And she would create a chart of all the kids that were playing together. And then she created a chart of all the kids' names that were not mentioned on any card. And I think I know why she did that. I think I know what was driving her decision to do that. Yeah. But it greatly impacted her classroom. And I tell you that story without you even knowing the punchline, because I want you to tell me and tell the teachers that are listening why you think the teacher did that and what impact something so simple could have on her students. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, we all try our best to do what we think is best for our students. And I just want to first acknowledge that, you know, as teachers, we may not always get it right. And we might have some missteps, which is one of the points in this conversation, right? To include and make people feel comfortable and that we belong. And sometimes when we do that, we alienate people and make them feel like outsiders. So when she was collecting the note cards every Friday, she was doing that, collecting cards. And I don't think it was affecting the children in the way that she wanted it to, and to encourage them to play with each other. and it didn't allow the students to really understand their roles and responsibilities and how they needed to care for each other out there when they were playing. So by just collecting the cards, she didn't allow for her to take the role and helping them figure out, why didn't I play with someone else? And what are some of the reasons, so we can talk about that and we can make it better? And how do I start adjusting my behavior? Because these are children, they don't know yet. So it's really important for us as teachers, as educators, to guide them in the process and help their thinking grow and give them the tools to think critically about it and wonder about things for themselves. And what is my behavior and
Mhm.
how does it impact other people? How am I making my classmates feel? And just by collecting the cards and posting them on the board, I think it was a big miss. But there's definitely opportunities to make that process even better.
So it seems like she had a good intention.
Sure.
She wanted to know who the children were that weren't being selected to play with or who weren't included in the group. But
Yeah.
she didn't take it. You're saying she didn't take it the step further to teach the children about why it's
Yeah.
important to build relationships.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll have the same problem week after week. And if they don't understand as a group why these things are happening and how it's making everyone feel,
Mhm.
then the behaviors won't change and she'll get the same results. And it's
Right.
really important to have those conversations and invite the students to think about things and help them as a teacher wonder why they're doing the things that they're doing and how do I change it.
So let me ask you, you mentioned a few minutes ago, you mentioned the word belonging.
Mm.
What what do you think it means to belong in a classroom
Mm.
for
Hmm.
students and for the teacher?
Yeah,
Will you
yeah,
speak to that?
yeah. As a human, regardless of who you are, your experiences, where you live, what you have access to or don't have access to, everyone wants to belong. They want to feel a sense of love and unity in some sort of group that they're placed in, right?
Right.
Um, and when we belong, we feel heard, we feel included, we feel valued, and ultimately we feel like we matter. And what better feeling is to feel like you matter, your place in this world is important regardless of who you are.
Right.
So I think creating that in a classroom allows for students and teachers to have a relationship that will help them learn the different lessons you want them to learn and help them become better people and ultimately leaders in our society.
Right. I totally
I,
agree with
I
that.
quick
And so,
example. Go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
As an adult, right? So we're talking to educators right now.
Mhm.
So if you think about how you feel when you're in a group and what things you need in order to feel like you belong in this
Right.
particular group,
Right.
it's exactly what a student needs. So
Mhm.
if you need to be validated when your voice is heard and people say, "Yeah, you're right, go on, girl," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." That's what we need to do in the classroom, right?
Right.
Regardless of how I sound. If I come in with my crazy attitude, like, "Hey, what's up?" and you accept that, I feel like I belong and I can be me. I can be Tasha. I can be accepted, which is one of the things I like about you, Anna, because the first time we met, I think I was that, "Hey, Anna, hey." You were like, "How are you?"
And we're still friends, right?
We belong together.
That's right. So, okay. It's important. We're hearing that it's important to belong, that
Absolutely.
it's that the teacher has to foster that in the classroom, that sense of
Absolutely.
belonging. So how do you do it? And I know that there are a million different ways to do that, but based on what you've seen and the different groups that you have worked with all over the United States and California, all different ages, what are some very specific ways that these teachers who are listening to this can take away and say, I'm going to do that on day one, or I'm going to start that this school year for the first time?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said a few because I do have a million.
Okay.
Um, but let's just start with a ritual that you create for you and your students, where it's special, it's meaningful to you. So it can be a morning meeting or a friendship circle or some initial, let's kick this day off the right way, you
Mhm.
know? And in that friendship circle or in that meeting of the minds, it's important to ask them, how are you doing?
Mm.
Right? So I can say, oh, I had a rough morning. I didn't want to get up this morning. And my mom and I didn't eat breakfast and I'm tired, or I had a great day. Let me tell you about what I did.
Right.
All of those things are important because it allows the students to have a sense of space in their classroom. They own a piece of that space and
Mm.
they're invited to share in that, and they are inviting other people. So everyone gets to hear from each other and get to know each other um, outside of the lessons. I think for the teacher, it also reduces the authority power figure,
Right.
which
I was going to ask you about that.
is dynamic, right?
So
And so,
can you talk about that specifically? Because I have been in classrooms, like I said, all over the world. I've been in classrooms in the Middle East, in Belize, in the US, in Haiti, all over the place. And I see the same thing. I see a teacher at the front of the room and the students afraid to raise their hand or not speaking at all. And I think, what has happened that the children are afraid to share and be open? So what do you say about that hierarchy, the teacher versus the student?
yeah, I say that how people learn is essentially just taking in information and giving it back to you how you gave it to me. So I'm only repeating what you told me. I don't have the areas to wonder about things, to question things, and
Mhm.
to express my opinions and thoughts about what you're talking about, right? Now, in certain subjects, math is absolute. 1 plus 1 is always two. I
Right,
get that.
right.
But there are ways in which we can ask the students how they're feeling about certain things, what they think about certain things. So one of the most powerful questions that I asked in the classroom that literally blew the teachers away when I would model it for them in the classroom with students, I would ask the students, "Hey, what do you think?" And then you see the hand shoot up. And before I say that, I say, "Okay, is what you think right or wrong?"
Huh.
And everybody's looking there like, it's right. And then I'll challenge that and I'll say, okay, so if I say the Lakers, this is when I was in LA, so you know that's not right. The Lakers, right? And they're like, no, 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 no. And I was like, okay, so is what I think right or wrong? And they're like, oh, it's neither, it's just how you feel. And I say, exactly. So when I ask you, what do you think? I'm only asking you how you feel. You don't get a grade on this. I don't get to tell you whether you're right or wrong. It just is what it is. So
Mhm.
let's just be together in this classroom right now. So what do you think? And the hands that went up and the light bulbs that went off as the students listened to each other and as they talked through what they feel and what they think about things was incredible. And magic happened every single time. So I walked out of the classroom looking like, the greatest person on earth. And
Right.
all I did was ask, what do you think? One time.
Because you showed though that their opinion matters.
I show that their opinion matters.
So so don't you think though that this takes practice and that maybe
Absolutely.
not every time you're going to have the perfect response and sometimes you're going to have kids looking at you like I don't know what she wants me to say or
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood for this.
Yeah.
But doing a morning meeting consistently every day is probably the key. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely. And I think it starts to demonstrate that you as a teacher want to set this space in the way that you want to make people feel like they belong.
Right.
And one of the ways to do that is to invite them to participate,
Mhm.
and if you ask them how they're feeling or a particular question, any question can exist in the friendship circle,
Right.
from how was your day or what do you expect for today, or tell me about a time where you had a great accomplishment. It could be any question to get them to talk and to participate. And it also shows that it's not about you, the teacher, the educator. It's about us in this classroom.
Yeah.
So you're invited to talk to, and it's not just me talking to you.
Okay, so is it appropriate during a friendship circle to talk about tough things? For example, if there's a death in the school,
Mhm.
whether it's a student or a teacher, or there is a catastrophic event in the community, is it okay to talk about it with even little children?
I think that's the best time to talk about it. Absolutely. It's happening. They see it, they know it. And what better way to make sure that they're okay and you can offer some guidance and hear where they are mentally, physically, emotionally, than to open up the circle and invite them to talk about it. You
Mm,
know, it reduces all kinds of angst, it reduces all kinds of shame, whatever's associated with that trauma and with that tragedy. It allows it to open up and they feel free to be able to talk about it. And, you know, part of like healthy mental, emotional state is to have a conversation. And if you as an educator can create that for your students, what a wonderful classroom
absolutely.
of influence and belonging and safety
And
that you start
trust.
to create that, and trust. Yeah, which is huge, right?
Yeah, students have to trust the teacher.
Absolutely.
So, okay, we've talked about the importance of children feeling like they belong in a classroom, that they are
Mhm.
part of that classroom community. One
Yes.
way is through starting each day off with whatever you want to call it, a gathering, a morning
Yeah,
meeting, friendship circle. I've heard it called all kinds of things.
sure.
What's another way a teacher could build that trust and help kids feel like they belong in that classroom, that they are a family?
Yeah. So, regardless of how much time these students spend in the classroom, it's time spent outside of their homes,
Mhm.
right? So, I think it's really important for them to come into a space that reflects them and what they hold near and dear to their
Hmm.
hearts and what they value. So, it would be a great exercise to have them look around their house and bring in something that symbolizes, or maybe the actual item, you know, with permission,
Right.
something that
With permission.
yeah, with permission is key. Um, that symbolizes home and safety and love and whatever theme you wanna elicit from there.
Right.
So if they bring in that item or that representation and you put it in places of the classroom that they can see and everyone else can see. This is what makes Tisha feel safe. This is what makes Anna feel safe. Wow, I wonder what that is. And it just creates this warm environment where they're in touch and they're near something that's valuable to them
Huh.
and they're sharing it with each other. Not literally, but
Right.
figuratively sharing it with each other because it's right there in the room. So I think decorating the classroom and reflections of them,
Yeah.
just reflections of them aside from that. And thirdly, I think it'd be really important as a class, as a collective unit, to create an art project that reflects everyone's input. And it could be a community quilt. And it doesn't have to be fabric. You can get as fancy as you want, or it could be as simple as you want. They'll totally love it. But if you just create a community art project where everyone has a panel or a piece in this project
Mhm.
that then gets displayed in the classroom somewhere, so we see this is our community, this is what it looks like. And what will happen if a piece of this is taken out? Well,
Ah,
we're not the same. So we all make up what this looks like, and all of us are equally as important, and it all looks beautiful regardless of what colors you chose, regardless of what lines you did, regardless of how
right.
small or how big, it all matters because it's right here for us all.
I love that idea. And I love the idea of decorating the classroom. I'm not sure I've seen that. Um, Maybe I've seen it and haven't known what I was looking at, but I
Sure.
love the idea of, because really school is supposed to be an extension of home. That
Yeah,
transition is not supposed to be so
right,
great. And
right.
so having those emblems and symbols of their personal life, and I would imagine even for younger kids, preschool
Mhm.
age, or
Yeah,
the little students, the younger students, that connection to home feels really good.
Yeah.
So the art project and the decorating the classroom, what role does the teacher have in that? Is that something that just, just the students do, or what role does the
Right.
teacher play?
Right. I mean, that would be great, but it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
The teacher's role is absolutely needs to be intentional about different ways that they foster belonging in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It won't happen if the teacher isn't modeling, if the teacher isn't intentionally creating
Right.
activities to do that, if the teacher isn't decorating the classroom. Like, all of that matters. And fortunately and unfortunately, it rests on the teacher. And it's really important that we as educators make sure we do that, because otherwise the students do what we do. We
Right.
model what we expect.
Absolutely.
And we expect excellence and we expect certain behaviors to be had. We need to do it.
Right. And so just seeing, I think it's important for the students to also see their teacher as a human being. And
Yeah.
whether they're participating in decorating the classroom, or they're adding their piece to the quilt,
Yeah.
the classroom
Yeah.
quilt, or they're sharing an appropriate personal story about maybe a struggle that they're having,
Yeah.
not feeling well, or that they lost
Yeah.
a loved one or something like that.
Yeah.
Imagine that for students, that kind of breaks down that barrier of teacher
Yeah.
versus student, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I absolutely think that should happen. But I want to caution us as teachers, especially as adults,
Hmm.
um, not to trump their story. Because if I've seen time and time again, when a student starts to open up, regardless if you're in second grade or 10th grade, or you're in, the upper grade levels, if I share a story about feeling insecure, soon after the teacher's like, oh yeah, because when I was growing up, I felt insecure too. And I had this, and then they just drone on, and they end up trumping and suffocating that story that was shared by the student.
Wow.
So I think it's really important when you do participate as a teacher with the students, so that way it's a collective push. I
Mhm.
think it's important to really be mindful as an adult, not to suffocate that voice. It's important to let that voice live and breathe as is, and you can add to it, so that way it becomes a beautiful experience.
I love
But be mindful not to overpower and not to take over that person's story. It was their story, not yours.
I love that, because I mean, I have done that to students, I'm sure, for years,
Me
um,
too.
unintentionally. You just,
Unintentionally. You have the best intentions, actually.
right, absolutely. But that visual of even what you just did with your hand, of like the child's voice is being heard, and they're being brave to let their voice be heard, and then all of a sudden the teacher just suffocates it,
Yeah.
and that knocks them down a few notches. And
Yeah.
that is not our role in the classroom, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
So to that, whose responsibility is it to develop the sense of belonging in a classroom?
I think it's first and foremost and chiefly the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think they are the leader of the movement,
Right.
and they like, let's do this, people.
Right.
But I think it's important to include participation from the students
Mm-hmm.
in this direction that this person is leading them into, right? They're teaching them how to create these spaces, and it's important to get their input and buy-in as students, so that way they can do it outside of the teacher. So when they go out to play, the teacher doesn't have to worry as much, because it's been taught of how to do it. They've had a role in being able to do it with the teacher.
Hmm.
But again, if it doesn't come from the person who is in charge, they're not going to follow through with it. And if it's not repetitive, and if it's not constant, then it'll be for naught. So I'm a mom of 4 boys, and it's
Wow.
crazy. It's crazy. And I remember this spiritual leader telling me, "Don't get tired.
Hmm.
Don't get tired." And I'm like, "What? I can be tired if I want to."
Yeah.
And I do get tired, and I'm about to take a nap, or I'm about to check out and go somewhere, right? What do you
Right.
mean don't get tired? But what he was saying was not, you can't get tired and you can't check out. You absolutely should do self-care. But he was saying, don't give up in the in the pursuit of your children.
Hmm.
Don't stop pursuing what you know they can do and what you know they can be. So don't stop pursuing a sense of creating that sense of belonging in the classroom when it gets hard, or when the students don't feel like they're buying into it, or when you keep bumping your head, you feel like, and the students aren't responding. So keep up in that pursuit of that, and don't get tired.
Yeah.
No, you could take a breather and try to figure out how to regroup, but that pursuit needs to be steady and you need to persist.
I love that. And as you were saying that, I was imagining some of the classrooms that I've been in, and my own classrooms as well. And I was thinking about visualizing teachers just exhausted, like the effort that they put
Yes.
into this. But we also have to believe that this effort we put into it and the repetition that you just talked about is the key. It
Yeah.
matters that children feel like they matter in the classroom and that they belong. And even the smallest thing that you do, standing at the door, greeting a child, whether it's appropriate to hug them or fist pump them or
Right.
shake their hand or just a little pat in the back, looking in their eye and saying, "Good morning, Tasha. I'm so
Yes.
glad to see you in this classroom today." It all matters. It
It
all
all matters.
works
Time and
together.
time again.
Yep,
It doesn't matter that one time, it matters every time.
right. Absolutely. So, to recap, we've
Yes.
talked about the importance of belonging. We've
Hmm.
talked about three very concrete
Hmm.
strategies that teachers can use to start building that sense of belonging through a morning gathering, whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it,
Sure.
through a group art project, which is really great to do at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
kind of set the
Fun.
tone.
Mhm.
And then the third one was having students bring in something from their home and decorate.
Mhm. Yes.
Those are all great strategies. There are a million more, and I am definitely going to have you back to talk about all kinds of other
Please,
things.
please.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up this session on belonging and building classroom community, do you have a charge or some final challenge that you would like to give to these teachers that are completing this workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I have a million challenges, but I'll stick to one. I just want to first acknowledge the important role that teachers and educators have in the classroom and in these lives of individuals. We see them as little people or students or whatever label, but these are lives of individuals that we are helping to shape, and this is no small responsibility. So props, kudos, thank yous across the globe to all the work that you do. And I just really think it's important for teachers to give themselves some grace.
Hmm.
And I think when you want to do certain things, sometimes fear grips your heart because you don't want to get it wrong. You don't have the tools. I don't know if this is right. And I want to just ensure that if you are trying to create a sense of belonging in the classroom, it is right. And you'll know when you don't do it right, and you just readjust and give yourself the room to do so. Allow yourself to breathe, allow your practices to grow, allow your experiences to teach and re-inform what you need to do better. And just continue to open yourself up to growth. Again, it's the same thing we teach our students. Try,
Yeah.
just try. And if you miss, it's okay. You've learned a lesson and you do it better next time. And if you don't, you've learned another lesson. And so the same risk and the same, curiosities and the same creativity we want our students to bring to the lessons and in these classrooms, that's what we need to model, and that's what we need to allow for ourselves. So I just want to encourage you to continue to take those risks and continue to build inclusive classrooms that allow people to feel like they belong, including yourself.
I love it. I love it so much. If I didn't have time to write it down because I was intently listening, but what you said about if you are working towards creating a sense of belonging in the classroom, you're right. You're
Yeah,
you're doing it right.
you're doing it right.
whatever way or method you're using, it's right. It's the right thing to do, because that is the
Absolutely.
most important thing. When a child is not emotionally regulated or feels safe or whatever, they can't focus on the academic part. So that
Absolutely.
social and emotional piece is key.
Huge point, Anna. Absolutely.
Well, I thank you so much, Tasha, for your
Thank
expertise.
you.
Again, we will see you again. Those of you teachers that are participating in this workshop, you will see Tasha again talking about all kinds of different topics related to education. And the second part to this workshop is that you will go back and visit the Teacher to Teacher Google Classroom to complete the activity or the assignment, whatever you want to call it, that relates to this workshop. And it's very simple. It's a reflective piece that you will write about your role as the person who is responsible for creating a sense of belonging in the classroom, and give us a few ideas of how you plan on doing that. After watching this video and completing your assignment, you will earn your 1 hour credit. So thank you so much, Tasha. Thank you. And thank you, teachers,
Bye,
for
everyone.
participating. And we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.